My name is Joel Ontiveros, and I want to talk about leadership. Leadership is hard to define. Many in academia have wrestled with the definition and have tried to create meaning with the term. For the purpose of this analysis, leadership can be defined as a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. With that said, there remain many different theories related to leadership. The theories are vast and cover many aspects of how leaders and followers function. In this presentation, I aim to do a historical leadership analysis of Cesar Chavez using the text, The Crusades of Cesar Chavez by Miriam Pawel. The goal is to compare and contrast Chavez to leadership theories and offer an analysis of his mission, goals. To begin, I will offer a historical overview of his life. Chavez was born on March 31st, 1927, in Yuma, Arizona. He lived with a large extended Mexican family that owned their own home. When Chavez was young, the family did not live in poverty and had shelter, food, and clothes. Chavez spent a lot of time with his mother. His mother, Juana, instilled in her children the importance of helping others and the need for personal sacrifice. She raised her children with the firm rules and advice that underscored those beliefs. Never lend money to your relatives. If they need money, give it to them. When an uncle asks for an errand, perform the task without question. Favors, she told them, are just that. When the children did favors for neighbors, they were not allowed to take a nickel in return. Indeed, from a young age, Chavez was instilled with the belief of community service and mutual aid. The family eventually was stricken with poverty when the Great Depression roared across the country. Consequently, the family lost their home because of unpaid taxes. A wealthy Arizona businessman purchased the home for very cheap and kicked the family out. Losing the home had an impact on young Chavez, and he realized issues with systemic wealth inequality. The family moved to the Central Valley of California, seeking work in the fields of the farms. The next few years they lived in barns, tents, shacks, labor camps, and spare rooms. Whatever shelter Juana could find, she always insisted the children go to school, though they worked in the fields on the weekends and summers. During this time is when Chavez started to experience discrimination locally and in the schools. Teachers and locals would make bigoted remarks about Mexicans, and Chavez also noticed that many stores in the area refused services to anyone with visible Mexican ancestry. When Chavez became older, he worked in the farms. He noticed the supervisors frequently insulted workers, shaming them in front of their families. Women were sexually harassed, taunted, touched, and asked for favors. Farm workers were exempt from most health and safety provisions that applied to other laborers. There were no bathrooms in the fields, and often no trees or buildings to hide behind. Women had to shield one another to try for a shred of privacy and decency. The workers had to work all day long and were subject to physical pain for being on the ground and bent over all day. Sadly, they were subject to physical and psychological pain. What made the situation worse was that they were paid very low wages, with supervisors skimming and cheating the workers' wages. Chavez noticed that this was the case for Mexicans, Filipinos, and the Chinese. In his 20s, Chavez married and started to have children. He was introduced to an Anglo activist named Fred Ross. Ross became his mentor and solicited Chavez to join the Community Service Organization, otherwise known as CSO, which was a California Latino civil rights organization. Chavez moved quickly up the rankings as a leader and helped create chapters in San Jose and the Central Valley of California. The organization held a mission to help farm workers receive decent pay, workers' rights, and be treated with respect. Chavez became the CSO's national director in 1959. The organization was in financial disarray at the time, and Chavez noticed many issues regarding its structure. Chavez resigned in 1962 with the goal to create his own organization. Chavez and his family moved to Delano, California in 1962 and created their own organization termed the National Farm Workers Association, NFWA. The group desired to not label it as a union, but as a movement. Joined by many activists such as Dolores Huerta, the organization became popular throughout the country. The NFWA was able to create boycotts against the grape industry because of growers' poor pay, bad work environment, and discrimination. The movement gained support from Martin Luther King Jr., Dorothy Day, Robert Kennedy, and many others. Through his work, Chavez was able to help farm workers and other marginalized groups seek justice through many different boycotts and political campaigns. A student of Gandhi, Chavez would begin many of his boycotts and campaigns with religious fasting. His methods became popular, and he was regarded as a celebrity across the world during his later years. After MLK and Robert Kennedy's deaths, there started to be death threats against Chavez's life. Consequently, he became paranoid and started to purge many of his loyal volunteers. Chavez died on April 23, 1993 from an electrolyte imbalance from fasting. Leadership theory analysis. Chavez can be labeled and classified as an individual that follows the servant leadership theory. The theory holds that leaders should be attentive to the needs of followers, empower them, and help them develop their full human capacities. In addition, the selfless servant in a group has an extraordinary impact on the other members. The leader attends fully to the needs of the followers, removing inequalities and social injustice. When Chavez first started his activist mission, he denied getting paid. During this time with the community service organization, Chavez repeatedly denied raises and demanded that the money be used to help the farm workers and others stricken by social injustice. Chavez never used money improperly to make himself or his loved ones wealthy. He demanded that all funds be used for the cause of the mission and directly placed his followers in positions to succeed in the beginning of his career. Chavez was also a transformational leader. This type of leader can be defined as leaders who are able to inspire followers to accomplish great things. They understand and adapt to the needs and motives of followers. They are recognized as change agents who are good role models that create a clear and articulate vision for the organization. Chavez displayed transformational leadership aspects by adapting to the needs of his followers and being able to have a clear, articulate vision. For instance, Chavez had celebrity and political followers that would seek inspiration. He was a great role model that empowered Robert Kennedy to join the fight for justice for the marginalized. In addition, famous Catholic activist Dorothy Day was empowered by Chavez and his transformational speeches and joined the movement. Chavez was also an authentic leader. According to the theory, authentic leadership is emerging in response to society demands for a genuine, trustworthy, and good leader. Leadership that is transparent, morally grounded, and responsive to people's needs and values. The farm workers in California and the American Southwest were seeking a genuine leader in the mid-20th century. Chavez's leadership emerged to society's demands in relation to social injustice that these farm workers faced. He was responsive to the people's needs by creating a farm workers movement that used boycotts, sit-ins, and political movements to create better conditions for farm workers. He was able to succeed in making the movement recognizable on a grand scale. Leadership weaknesses. Chavez was not an inclusive leader. Inclusive leadership holds an imperative that a leader must make sure that followers have a feeling that they belong and still have individual autonomy. Inclusion would also align with including all people regardless of their race, sex, or ideology. Consequently, Chavez held a sexist attitude towards women. Besides Dolores Huerta, he did not advance any women to a position of power. He believed that women were not good organizers and were relegated to cooking, cleaning, and printing paper. In addition to the sexism, Chavez held bigoted views about Mexican migrant workers that were not American citizens. He lobbied to end the Bracerio program that brought Mexican workers from Mexico, and he also demanded that they were not allowed into the country. He used derogatory, bigoted words when referring to them and would not let them join the National Farm Workers Association. To this day, many Mexican Americans that consider undocumented workers as equals consider Chavez to be a bigot towards his own people. Chavez also did not display proper team leadership qualities. One of the reasons Chavez left the Community Service Organization, CSO, was because the organization practiced a shared leadership model. Chavez created his own movement because he wanted to lead himself. Thus, the National Farm Workers Association was strictly operated by him. However, all nonprofit organizations legally must have a board. The organization had a board, but Chavez never listened to their recommendations, nor was he altered by their votes. He simply did what he wanted to on his own terms. His decisions became a detriment to the organization when he started to shift funds to projects that did not align with the mission. When other members of the organization would communicate their issues with his leadership, he would purge them and label them as leftists or communists. Conclusion. When analyzing Chavez's leadership qualities, it is not a dichotomy of whether he was good or bad. The truth is that he was a complicated leader and had great leadership qualities, while simultaneously having qualities that harmed his mission and organization. Chavez left a legacy for organizers to review and learn from, using the good things that he did and figuring out a way to learn and avoid the negative things.